It's Lisa from Been There, Got Out. I was just saying how much I've missed being on Instagram. And today I'm going to be talking with our old friend Chelsey Brooke Cole about a number of things. There she is. I see you, Chelsey. Let me just, let me see if I could, if this will work this time. But there's a lot to talk. Chelsey is saying you can't join. Oh, it's so annoying. All right, let me try it again. But we want to talk about, oh wait, and now I can see you. Can you see me?
Yes.
So annoying. Anyway, great to see you. Yeah.
You. I know. I haven't done one of these in a while. I know you guys have been super busy and yeah, lives are always fun.
I know. I know. And I know that you and I talked about a couple of topic ideas, but then a lot of stuff has happened lately with religious abuse.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we could get right into that first and then get into some of the other stuff because, oh my gosh, like, you know, we have this legal abuse support group and we also have this larger community. And I don't know if it's the holidays or what, but something that happened recently with someone we know is as they're in the middle of this really difficult divorce, both of them come from a very religious community and they were at the same church and one of them left. And so their ex is telling the kids that the parent who left, even though she's in another church, is going to hell and committed adultery and all kinds of stuff. And so the kids are little kids, like really, really little, like pre-K, are coming to the other parent and saying, this one parent is saying that you're going to hell because of these reasons. Like, have you ever heard of something like this? And do you have any advice for the parent who is dealing with it and any ideas on what to say to the kids?
I have, unfortunately, and it's so awful. I mean, I think outside of these situations, we can't imagine. And that's what's so crazy about narcissistic abuse. Like when you start telling people, oh yeah, you know, I'm having these issues with my ex, they put it in like the normal topic category where maybe you don't agree on schools or after school care activities, but like we're talking about stuff that is messing with kids' minds.
Next
And this,
level.
yeah, exactly. Next level stuff. So first of all, just acknowledging like what you're going through is crazy making. Like if you've ever experienced narcissistic abuse and then the spiritual abuse on top of it, it kind of is the next step up because now you're messing with kids' understanding of the afterlife, and especially with these kids, they're so small, they have no idea how to make sense of this. And so that's what I think we almost have to it can become blown up because it is so big and we can have such a reaction to it as would make sense. Of course we do. But I think we also have to come back to, okay, where are the kids at right now developmentally? Like you can't get into an in-depth spiritual conversation or tell them like your parents are narcissists and they're trying to turn you against me. Like we can't get into all of that. So I think it's
No.
really important that you kind of narrow your focus. And as with most things, when you're dealing with a narcissistic co-parent, it's addressing how the kids feel, validating their emotions. Like, wow, I can't believe they said that. That must have been so scary. How was like, what did you think when so and so said that? Or like, how did you feel? That must be a lot on you. And bring it back to the basics. You know, here's what we can control. Sometimes people say really big and scary things, but I'm so glad that you told me. Let's talk this through, like validate their feelings, validate what it's like for them to have a parent go through that and say something like that. Because at this point, what you want to do is preserve the relationship. You can preserve the
With the kids.
relationship, right?
With
Preserve the
kids.
relationship with the kids. So if you can be there and validate how scary and big that would be for them, then that's going to be better than kind of frantically trying to go into explain. And I know we're going to talk about the deep method, which is why we don't engage or explain things when we're dealing with narcissists, because then we have to get into their crazy making world. So that's number one, I would say, is validate for the kids how big and how scary that must have been and talk them through that before ever trying to address like the spiritual aspect and actually getting into what's true and what's not and all of that.
Yeah. I mean, these kids are scared because they're being told that one of their parents is going to
Yeah.
hell. And also they're very angry because they're being told by one parent that the other parent did this terrible thing, like adultery. They don't even know
Yeah.
because that parent left the relationship, and defining adultery as like leaving a relationship for somebody else when that's not even the case. So there's no explanation for pre-K kids. They just are,
Right.
again, so confused, and
Yeah.
we're all just like,
I know. Yeah, it's a lot. And that's something that stands out with narcissists and spiritual abuse is that narcissists take the position of God. And I think that that's something that you can highlight is like, well, I'm sure that was really scary to hear, but even dad isn't God. And ultimately, God is the one who looks at us and, assuming whatever their religious beliefs are, but like God is the one who looks at our actions and our words and judges our heart and like other people don't get to say who's going to hell and who's not. Like that's actually not up to daddy or
that's
mommy. So I know that must be really
that's
overwhelming,
great.
but
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, that's brilliant. I think to be able to separate.
Yes. Because that's what the narcissist does, right? Like they come in, they own the reality in the room. So whether it's what happened in a certain scenario, it's a conversation that you had, it's who's going to hell and who's not, like they come in and they act like they get to say what's true and what's not and how you feel and what you said and what happened, and actual reality goes out the window.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't it interesting how, I mean, how pervasive it is in all elements of
Yes.
emotional abuse?
Yeah. That's what they do in every situation, because if they can stop you from thinking for yourself, feeling for yourself, having the belief that I get to say what my intentions are and how I feel and what I think, if they can pull you away from that, that's like the ultimate end of gaslighting, is that they become the filter through which you see the world. And that's why it's
Hmm.
so damaging for kids, because kids, we innately trust our parents. They're our attachment, they're our caregivers. We kind of naturally assume that they have our best interest. And so it's really hard to explain to kids that maybe your parent doesn't have that best interest. It's a long-term game. So I think that's important to keep in mind. Like they're in pre-K now, they're going to grow and you're going to be able to have a conversation with them later. And I think that's something important to highlight to kids too, is like there's there's a lot. You can tell them like there's a lot of things that happen that I will be happy to tell you later. But right now in your bubble, like what's important to you is friends and school and your activities. You play soccer, you get to go hang out with so and so. Like that's your world right now. That's what's important to you. So I'm sorry that daddy or whoever is telling you these big scary things and that's overwhelming, but this is what you can focus on. And when you get older, we can talk about all these things. But that's something else. Kids just want to know, how does this impact me and how am I supposed to integrate this into my world? So if you validate for them, like, that's really not for you right now. Here's your bubble and here's your world and here's what's important to you. And those other things you're going to have time to figure out. And we'll be able to talk about all of that later, but I don't want to put that burden on you. I don't want to talk to you about adult things before you're ready because it's too big. It's really heavy and it's scary. So I'm sorry that that's happening over here, but here's what we can do and here's what you can focus on, and kind of
Yeah.
helping them see that too.
So Chelsey, I don't know if you know, but so since we've last talked, Chris and I are working on our second book, and a lot of it
Yes.
is dealing with how to handle when a toxic ex is trying to brainwash the kids, both in and out of court.
Yeah.
And I came upon a term recently because I did a webinar a couple weeks ago called self-regulation and co-regulation in
Mm-hmm.
terms of with the kids, and how I keep hearing how it's important for a parent to self-regulate their
Yeah.
emotions, to recognize their triggers, and basically keep themselves calm so they can co-regulate and teach their children how to process the world around them. And so as you're talking, I'm thinking, this sounds like co-regulation, is that you yourself are staying as calm as possible and explaining to you're reminding your child, this is your world. This is not something that you have control over. This is not something that matters to you right now. I know you're scared and everything else, but you worry about this and we'll deal with the rest of it and
Yeah.
we'll take care of it.
That's so important. Yes. And it reminds me of a training that I went to that was talking about something similar, like our nervous systems and how we grow up, and that co-regulation piece is so important. First of all, because as we know, it only takes one healthy parent to make a big difference. There's something called, good enough parenting, and it's a concept of like, you don't have to get it all right all the time. You have to show up most of the time. You have to acknowledge your mistakes. You have to validate, how that felt, make amends. Just try to be a good human. And good enough parenting is good enough, even when you're dealing with a narcissist. You can't get pulled into trying to undo everything the narcissist is doing, because then you are kind of entering their reality, and you're essentially modeling to the kids as well, like, yeah, we always have to address the crazy that's going on over here. So if you can self-regulate, then you can teach the kids, you're co-regulating with them, and you're teaching them and their nervous system what healthy feels like. And that's essential as they keep growing up, because the narcissist is going to continue to be chaotic and inconsistent. They're either going to be neglectful, or they'll be enmeshed with their child where they're trying to kind of form and shape them, or they'll have nothing to do with them. And that's probably going to come and go based on what's going on in the narcissist world. Mm-hmm. So if you can just keep being that safe, calm, stable place, eventually the kids will gravitate toward that. And that you are teaching them by co-regulating with them and their nervous system, like, oh, this is what calm feels like. This is how it is to be able to just talk things out. Things don't have to be so hard. They don't have to be so crazy. And you can also explain that to the kids, like, see, how do you feel now after you have a conversation? Do you feel better? See, we could talk things out. Things don't have to be big. So if you have big feelings, just come, we'll talk about them, and then we can move on.
Awesome. I've missed talking to you, Chelsey. And you know what? We didn't have a formal introduction for people that don't know you. Can you say what you do? I mean, we already know you're a therapist, obviously, but talk a little bit about what you do.
Yes. So I'm a therapist and author. Trying to get my book up there as well, specializing in narcissistic abuse, relational trauma, CPTSD. If you can't tell, I've had plenty of experience with narcissists and spiritual abuse as well. I have dealt with narcissists in my personal life. I continue to have to deal with them in various ways. I often tell my clients, I get it, because I've been there too. I'm there too. And so I work with people via therapy, coaching, just this kind of content, helping people know they're not alone and you're not crazy, and there is a name to this. And once you can name it, that's a lot of the healing.
Well, you're a member of the Been There, Got Out Club. You went through and got away.
Yes.
So that's good. All right, talk about this DEEP method. I had never heard of that before.
Yeah. So the DEEP method is an acronym that stands for don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, and don't personalize. So I can break that down a bit and why it's so important. It really gained traction when you're thinking about how to communicate with a narcissist. Because initially, we often think it's a matter of miscommunication, right? Like, we're not on the same page. This is crazy making, because we're trying to understand it from a healthy framework. When we have a conflict with someone, it's usually because of a misunderstanding, or because they didn't understand your intentions, or you're just kind of speaking past each other and you're not connecting. And that's why for so long in narcissistic relationships, we do engage and we explain, because we think that's the solution. And that's often what we're told from couples therapists and from the general relationship advice. Use I statements. Tell them how you feel. Mm-hmm. Oh, I cringe when I hear that, because it's like, don't do that with a narcissist. So it's important to not defend, because they aren't listening anyways. They literally don't care. They already know that they're lying. They already know that these conversations are crazy making. The point of a conversation for a narcissist is control, not communication, not compromise. They're about control. So what is the point of defending yourself against someone who doesn't really care? Like, they're not listening to what you have to say anyways. So that's, don't defend. Don't engage, because that's when you give your power away. And you'll see this because when you're having a conversation with a narcissist and then you take the bait, they say something super triggering, because they know what triggers you. They know, what baits you, what your hot button pushes are. And so you then jump to like explain, like, no, that's not what I meant, or this is, or I guess engage. That's not what I meant, or that's not what I said, or that's not how I felt. And then they sit back and they're like, wow, someone's got a little anger problem, or wow, are you talking to your therapist about this? Are you on your medications? Like, you really need some help. And that's where the gaslighting starts to come in. And you literally feel that shift and you're like, what just happened? They were baiting me. But then as soon as you engaged with them, that's when they kind of sat back and are like, because that's
This,
what they wanted.
yeah, Chelsea, you're reminding me like way back when I was still in the death throes of my 20-year
Yeah.
relationship slash marriage. And I literally spent like 6 hours a day engaging with my ex over
Yeah.
trying to make sense and trying to explain how he was delusional and how it didn't make sense. And looking back, I'm thinking I was doing exactly what he wanted without ever realizing it because I just kept engaging.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And that is what they want. And you see how much time it takes. Like, it monopolizes your time and your energy. We wonder why these relationships are so exhausting
Right.
and why they take up so much of our time and mental and emotional space and energy, because you're trying to rationalize with an irrational person. You're
Mhm.
trying to make sense of something that's senseless. And that is the point. And that's why understanding narcissistic abuse and understanding how narcissists think is so important. Um, but yeah, going to your point, like, don't explain, because how do you explain someone who's twisting everything that's happened? First of all, they're not listening, they don't care, they know they're lying. And then you're trying to explain something that they've already completely twisted reality. Like, how do you defend yourself against a lie? How do you explain something that's not even true? So before you know it, you leave conversations feeling more confused than when you started them and wondering, what am I even saying at this point? Like, what are we even arguing about? What is the content of this conversation? Because you've went so far from what it was supposed to be.
I think a lot of it has to do with the idea of logic. That
Yeah.
we think the world is
Mm-hmm.
logical. We approach things logically. I know, in our world, we're dealing with all kinds of things with court and lawyers, that lawyers are trained in
Yeah.
logic. And so they come to the table with logic, and then people are saying, this is the craziest case I've ever
Yeah.
dealt with. And I'm thinking, this is the craziest person I've ever dealt with, or maybe I'm the one who's crazy, because logic doesn't work with these
No,
people.
because narcissists don't think in a logical way.
Mhm.
Their mindset is to be entitled. Entitlement is like a key piece of understanding narcissists. If you can get that they are entitled, then a lot of things start to make sense. Meaning, they believe the rules don't apply to them. The rules apply to you. They do not apply to them. The narcissist is always the exception. The narcissist should always get what they want. They don't care about being hypocritical, because in our
Mhm.
minds, we try to keep that balance, right? We try to be like, well, I'm not going to ask that of them if I wouldn't do it. And well, sometimes I make mistakes, so I'm going to assume that they just made a mistake. And you're trying to keep that balanced mind, because that's how you build healthy self esteem. Healthy self esteem
Right.
comes from keeping your public and private behaviors in check. You're generally the same person wherever you are, whoever you're with, or you aim to be. A narcissist literally puts on a mask for different people based on what suits them best at the time. Like, they can be one person over here and one person over here and one person over here, which is why there is no congruity in how they behave. So they're not trying to be balanced. And if you try to take that approach with them, like, well, how can you ask this of me if you do this? And like, you try to get them to see the hypocrisy and to see how things don't fit, why would they want to admit that? They think they're entitled to do whatever they want whenever they want.
It's almost like it makes me think of how the golden rule
Yeah.
doesn't apply, and many of us think that I want to be treated the way I'll treat others the way I would like to be treated,
Right.
but that harms us because we're projecting that
Yes.
value onto a toxic personality who doesn't see that at all.
Positive projection. Right. You assume that because you're a nice, reasonable, kind, empathetic person, that they are as well. And that's not the case.
Right.
So that's why I'm a big advocate of looking at actions over words, not assuming, not necessarily that you're assuming the worst, but you just have a wait and see attitude instead of jumping to, well, they don't mean it. And I'm sure it was a mistake and it was a miscommunication. And I'm sure they were just stressed. And then they said it won't happen again. You step back and go, I don't know. I'll have to wait and see what happens.
That of course makes me think of the whole notion of trust, and that trust is something that has to
Yeah.
be earned. But people sometimes feel like when I meet someone, I should know right away, like this person said the right things, and so I feel like I should
Yeah.
be able to trust them. Keep saying No, just like you're saying, wait and see. Wait
Yeah,
and see how
that's so,
they behave.
yeah, that's such a true point though. Like, I think we have this idea that we're a bad person if we don't automatically trust someone, as if I'm being cynical or I'm assuming the worst in someone if I don't automatically trust them. But that goes back to why we have to work on our own stuff. And I always say, whatever you don't know is your biggest vulnerability. Like, whatever you don't know about yourself, what you don't know
Mm,
about how a narcissist thinks is your biggest vulnerability. Because if you don't know yourself, then a narcissist will come in and say, you're so selfish, you're so insecure, you're so overdramatic, you're so ridiculous. And if you don't know your own triggers and know your own insecurities or your vulnerabilities or your own behaviors, and you don't know yourself really well, then you're open and you're vulnerable to thinking, ooh, maybe they're right. Like, maybe I did say that, or maybe that is selfish, or maybe I am asking for too much. So what you know about you is really empowering, because then the narcissist can't come in and speak into your life.
yeah. Wow. Okay, so we did don't defend, don't engage, don't explain. And
Don't
what's that last one?
don't personalize. I know that sounds really counterintuitive, because
Yeah.
it's like, no, this person's criticizing what I do, what I wear, how I think, my friends, my hobbies, everything. What do you mean it's not personal? It's really not about you. And here's why: because everything goes back to the narcissist. How they treat you depends on their mood, what's going on in their life. If things are going pretty well for them, that's when we tend to see the more grandiose side of them come out. And they can have a little bit more capacity to be pleasant when their grandiose needs are fulfilled. And that's also when they need supply and validation from you, and admiration and support. So they may kind of fluff you up a bit and be like, things are well, and like take you on dates or whatever they want to do, because they actually want that admiration from you. So at that point, it's not about you. It's not that everything's better. It's not that they now get it and they're going to treat you a different way. It's just things are going pretty well for them and they're in a pretty good mood. So, yeah, they want that validation and support from you at the time. Now, if things are not going well for them and they're feeling kind of sullen, or like life has mistreated them or victimized, or someone else got the promotion or whatever it is that didn't go well, then they need someone to criticize. They need someone to kind of put down so they can start to feel better. They project their anger or their shame or their insecurities onto you, and that's when they start tearing you down and criticizing you and devaluing you as a person. So yes, it's personal in the sense that it's directed toward you, but it's honestly not about you, because it also doesn't matter what you do or what you change. And that's where a lot of times we get stuck too. We think, oh, I just need to approach them differently. If I would have approached them at this time rather than this time, things would be better. If I use this communication strategy, if I use this love language, if we always did what they wanted, if we went with their friends, if I changed this hobby, if I dressed a different way, then things would get better. So it's always that carrot on the stick of, I just have to change this and do this. And narcissists will always give you something you're doing wrong. It's something you need to change. And so you think, yeah, it's because I'm doing this, or because of this situation, or because we have this issue that things aren't getting better. But that's not the case, because every time you change and do something else, the narcissist just picks something else to criticize you about.
Right, the moving goalposts. Chelsey, what do you think about this? Like, I've heard people say that their ex who was abusive is in a new relationship and everything is going wonderful, and some of the new relationships have lasted for years, and so then they start questioning themselves because they're like, well, maybe it was me, or like, look at them, they're in this solid relationship.
Remember how things look from the outside.
Mm-hmm.
If you just asked someone who didn't know you when you were in that relationship, might they have said the same thing? Because oftentimes
Good point.
from the outside, things look fine. And that's part of, again, the cognitive dissonance, like that mismatch between what's going on in the relationship and what things look like on the outside, and why we struggle for so long. So first of all, things are probably not great. There's probably a lot going on that we don't know, we don't see, and you know that because you've been in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, is the narcissist at a different point in their life? As narcissists get older, they tend to get a bit more vulnerable. Maybe they want to keep the relationship now, not because now they're suddenly an empathetic, compassionate, everything you ever wanted person, but because they want someone to care for them when they get old.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of narcissists will uh, find someone younger, or just find someone else, and that relationship will last because they're at a different point in their life, so it's serving a different function for them.
Mm-hmm.
But someone who is narcissistic doesn't just go and change and just become this empathetic, amazing person that you always wanted and always hoped they would be. Remember that narcissists are really good at crafting how things look, because that is what's most important to them, not actually what's happening in the relationship. So even if you don't see it, I can guarantee eventually, or probably already, those same things that happen with you will happen with them.
Yeah. And what do you say about people who say, "Oh, my ex is involved with somebody new, and I want to warn that person"?
Yes, I've had these conversations with clients, and we've talked
I
through
know.
like, what would that look
Uh-huh.
like? Because oftentimes we're going to look like the crazy person,
Mm-hmm.
and the narcissist already has that set up too, right? My crazy ex. They're so obsessed with me.
Right.
Now they're even reaching out to you. What do you think the likelihood is that they're going to believe you over the narcissist? Because the narcissist
Right.
has already painted a certain picture of you, and devalued and discredited you.
I often think that it's so important to them to appear as though they are desired.
Yes. Which is why they will kind of, I talk about like they'll keep supply in their back pocket. They love to have other exes or other people that they can go back to kind of when the current well is dry, when they're bored with their current narcissistic supply or current relationship. Then in their mind, they have all these other people they could be with. And a lot of times narcissists will even say that I could be with anyone, but I'm with you. Like,
Yeah.
or I've never really been broken up with, when they totally have been. So narcissists will create this framework, again, entitled mindset, because they can't handle the fact that maybe they're not as great as they think they are, that they will tell you and tell others that they have all these people that they could pick from, and that's just not the case.
All right. So now this is making me think of another thing that came up with someone that we know that has to do, well, all right, let me apply it to my situation. My ex has tried to send messages to our kids that I'm the only person that he doesn't get along with, that it's me, and that, he's friends with all his other exes, which is not true at all.
Yeah.
Like extremely the opposite with one in particular. But like, oh, it's just your mother who's this way. And so this person that we know is having an issue with another young child, where the ex is telling the child, your mom is your mom is making me unhappy because even though it's your birthday, she won't let me come over, and everybody else gets along with me, but she's the difficult one. I don't know why she won't, celebrate your birthday together. Like painting this picture that one person, the target, is a difficult one because they are not giving in on their boundaries.
Yep. 100% heard that. It's so classic. I mean, literally, we could just write a book with the things narcissists say, and it would apply to like 90% of relationships. Yes, narcissists often frame things like your mother or your father, whoever, like they're the only person I don't get along with. I get along with everyone else, where they're being so difficult because I want to be here and I want to support you, but I can't because of your mother or whoever. So going back to what we talked about in the beginning, it's the same kind of conversations you have with kids. How did that make you feel? I think some parents are almost scared to approach these topics with their kids because they've been
They are.
so, hammered with like, don't talk bad about the other parent. That's
Yeah.
often written, in parental agreements, like don't disparage the other parent. So they're afraid to even like approach any topic that has to do with their narcissistic co-parent. You can always address how something made your child feel, and you can always talk in generalizations. And what I mean is saying things like, sometimes even adults make bad choices. Not even adults get to tell you how to feel, like how you feel, and your feelings are yours and you own them. So talking to them about how they feel, validating, man, that must be really difficult to hear. I'm sure that's hard for a kid who feels like, in the middle. And I'm sorry that you shouldn't be put in the middle. Like there are things separate. Me and dad, or our parent relationship, is separate from you. We're going to be here for you. This is what's happening in your world. You're going to have this party, and then dad or whoever is totally able to have his own party.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can invite more friends, and then you can get other gifts. And like, there are reasons that we got divorced, obviously. We'll talk about that at another time.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, this is about you and your party, and I don't want you to worry about those things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So bringing it back to validating their reality, validating their feelings, and what's relevant in their world. A lot of times, again, for kids, it's like they just want everything to be okay. And that's what bothers them about what the narcissistic parent says, is because they perceive that there's conflict or things aren't okay. So if you can co-regulate and come back to no big deal, like it's okay. What me and dad have going on, like that's our stuff, not for you to worry about. We're going to have your party. So-and-so friend's going to come. He wants to have a party. He can totally do that too.
Yeah. So bringing the focus back to the kid's world, the kid's priorities, and shifting it. Like, you don't need to worry about us.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because the narcissist will always try to bring the kid in the middle.
Yeah. No, we know.
Yeah.
We know. All right. So I know we were going to also talk about some boundaries and goals and things like that, even though it's February.
That's true, but it's okay, right? We missed the January thing, but now maybe people are feeling a lull, so February is a good time. And I think that's really important for narcissistic abuse survivors to think about, because sometimes we feel so overwhelmed. We think, I can't even make a goal. I can't even set a goal. I have so much going on. And I get that. Like, that's valid. And that's a part of going on this healing journey. However, I think it's really important that you get to a place where you can set goals that are meaningful for you, or even just practical, because that's part of you taking your power back. That's part of you knowing that the narcissist doesn't get to rule everything in your life. A lot of dealing with a narcissist is mental strength and resiliency, and it's the mental game. So if meaningful goals feel too aspirational, like what's my purpose and what do I want to do in my career and where I want to be in 5 years, if that feels too heavy and too much, that's okay. Come back and make it practical. Literally, morning routines, nighttime routines, drinking a certain amount of water, eating certain foods, hanging out with friends, touching base with people you haven't talked to in a while. Make it something that you can do, and do not tell the narcissist any of your goals or plans. Like, that might even need to be number one on the list, is don't tell the narcissist what you're doing, what your goals are for the new year, what you hope to achieve, because anything you tell them can and will be used against you.
Oh, yeah. And I always think about that when it comes to family court too. Don't say what matters to you.
No, exactly. You
don't say what you're concerned about. Don't say what you want. Don't say what's important to you. Like, you don't count. It's almost like if you say what's important, they're going to probably do the opposite.
And that's what they go for. Like, if they know the kids are important to you, then that's what they'll go after. Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot of focusing on developing your inner strengths when you think about setting goals for yourself. And I think something that gets overlooked is just general personal development. Yes, it is important to learn about narcissism and narcissistic abuse, because you have to know what kind of person you're dealing with. But sometimes people feel like they're drowning in that too. Like, it's too much. I'm overwhelmed. And I always tell clients, like, if you get to the point where you feel like learning about narcissism is doing more harm than good, then you're probably ready to like take a break and shift from, okay, what is important to me and what do I need? So your own therapy, your own coaching, personal development, reading books, whether that's an audiobook or whatever you can make, like, very practical, checking in with yourself. Like, how do I feel today? Have I eaten anything? Do I need to drink anything? How am I doing? Like, journaling, all of these things can be really helpful, and they're really a lifeline, because dealing with a narcissist is like living with some kind of chronic illness. It's not something that you just go and can go to the doctor for and put a cast on and fix or whatever. Like, it's a long-term game.
Yeah. And we know that a lot of people have some severe health issues.
Absolutely.
As a result of this kind of insidious emotional abuse. So as you're talking about things that people can do for themselves, I read a book, and I keep bringing it up. It's called The Power of Fun by Catherine Price. And she talks about how important it is not just to do self-care in terms of relaxing and therapy, but to do things that stimulate your dopamine, like those pleasure hormones, in which you are connected to other people, and there's a flow where it's like an uninterrupted, where you can spend even just like 5-10 minutes or more where you're just like really focusing on what you're doing and not being distracted by other things. So
I like that one.
I know. I love it. I love it. That book has all kinds of like fun factors and charts. And there's one thing she says that people are completely divided over. Either they love it or they hate it. Can you guess what it is?
As far as, I don't know. What is
Something that people think is either fun or they really can't stand it, the beach. Either like I'm a beach lover, like I love going to the beach, I love staying there for hours, I love the sand, the heat, and other people are like, ew, I hate the sand, I hate sunburn, it's gross, like I'm bored. But everything else, like people love, or there's nuance.
And that's part of learning about yourself, and that's often what we get disconnected from in narcissistic relationships, which is why something like that is so powerful. Actually included like a journaling prompts in my book, because I also wanted to make it practical as well. Like, when do you feel inspired? When do you feel drained? What motivates you? What energizes you? When do you feel calm? When do you, like, all these different things, because we get so disconnected from that. Like, we don't know who we are anymore, what we like. That's why even that's great advice. Like, go have fun and do something that brings up your dopamine, or you get to be with other people. That can feel overwhelming even, because it's like fun. I don't feel like I can have fun. That doesn't feel safe. I know for me, that I definitely could resonate with that and look back and see, oh, fun was never a priority because it didn't feel safe. It felt like if I have fun and I let myself actually be happy, like that's when the shoe's going to drop. So I need to just almost like stay huddled down. And for a time, sometimes we do. I get that. However, can you create those safe pockets to go do that? Can you leave the house, or can you have a community or a space like Facebook or Instagram pages that you can go and connect with other people? Can you paint? Can you do something on your phone that's a fun game? Like anything to give your nervous system a bit of a break from feeling like it's always in fight or flight.
I remember feeling like when I was in that relationship for 20 years, like certain things I was just being judged on. Like I had always loved dancing, and then I just felt like I had this person literally just watching and judging. And like when we go on vacation, because I don't usually watch TV. One of my favorite things was to be in a hotel and like watch crappy reality TV. Just because I never do that. And then my ex would be like, what's the matter with you? Like, what does it say about you as a person for watching that crap? But it was relaxing. So now I watch like crap when I feel like it.
That's so true. Right. And that's another aspect, is like you're criticized for doing anything that's fun, or just to like veg out
light.
or something. Yeah. That self-consciousness I can definitely relate to as well, which is why it's usually not safe to let the narcissist know what you're doing as far as your free time or your goals, or how you're trying to have fun. Like, we need those safe spaces to do that if possible.
And because you just mentioned about being self-conscious, like that's exactly it. Is feeling self-conscious, like not being able to do something that you enjoy. And I know for me, getting out of that relationship, so I thought in my head, and I told this to Chris when I first met him, I said, I'm someone who doesn't laugh very often. Like it's really hard to get me to laugh out loud. And he had me laughing immediately because it's really funny. But I didn't realize it wasn't me, it was the situation. And so finding things that make that feel light and that can make you laugh, oh my gosh, to me that it sounds so cheesy, but it was the best. It was the best for my body and my brain to just be like, oh. Because when we get rid of these people, it's like this physical cloud that lifts. And so to find anything that makes you laugh, I think that's another really good first step.
Cat videos. There's all kinds of.
You had your cat.
Well, he's in my laugh right now. Right. They always make me laugh. Pets are so great. But exactly. We're talking about like that nervous system shift when you're literally in fight or flight. You feel like you can't access the fun, creative, lighthearted part of you.
Yeah, like the
And
joyful part.
yeah, exactly. Because as far as just nervous system wise, like it's like we can't access that. Because if you think of being in fight or flight, like you're actually in a crisis or in danger,
Mhm.
that would not be helpful. Like you can't be creative and fun and lighthearted in that moment. Like you have to address the threat. That's the problem when you're with a narcissist. It feels like the threat is always there. So it is about like intentionally creating those spaces where you can remind your nervous system almost like what it feels like to be happy and lighthearted. So you can learn, oh, it's not me, it's what I'm dealing with.
Yeah. And I think it's important too, to even if you don't want to try things that you would normally not
Yeah.
think would be fun. Like my daughter had me go to a Western line dancing class. I was just like, I don't know. I mean, I love hip hop dancing, but I'll try it. But having to really pay attention to following the steps, even
Yeah.
though I didn't think country music was my thing, and maybe it's not, but it was really fun. And there were moments for like 10 minutes at a time that just flew by. And I was like, wow, I just learned this new routine. I don't know if I'll ever use it, but it was really cool.
Yeah.
We are going to Nashville though for a conference. So
I saw that. You're gonna be close. That's so fun.
yeah, so I'll have to talk
Yeah.
about that off camera.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Chelsey. Tell me if we forgot anything.
I think we covered it all and more.
Okay,
So
so tell
hopefully it was helpful.
people again how they can find you.
Yeah. Well, obviously I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook. If anybody resonated with this and you're like, I might want to know more, you can go to my website. You can get the first chapter of my book for free. I have a free newsletter. Or if you're ready to just dive right in, of course, you can go get my book wherever books are sold, and yours as well. I know it's be so helpful.
Yes, good. Thank you. And thanks for sending us people, and we send you people too. I hope some of them, yeah. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
But it's been so good to see you, Chelsey.
Too.
And I'll hopefully maybe we can try it in real life in a month or so.
That'd be fun. Awesome.
All right.
Thank
Talk to you
you.
soon. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.